Okay, so I have made this little keepsake box on the Shape of Origin, and I want to try something new. I want to fill in, I routed out this design, and I want to fill that in with colored epoxy. So I'm going to use a pigment in the epoxy, and that'll be step two. The first step, the guidance I got from the company, is to do kind of a very light pre-coat in here, because with epoxy what happens is the air from the wood tries to bubble up and create little bubbles or voids in your epoxy. So I'm going to pre-coat this with just a really thin, maybe 1/16 of an inch covering. So the key with epoxy is 1:1. This is Maz Epoxy's tabletop coating, which I've used before on a big workbench, and a huge workbench, and this is all I used of it. So this stuff goes a long way. So it's 1:1. So part A, let's zero this out. Okay. I'm just going to put in maybe a 1/2 ounce. I don't even know. I'm just going to go real light on this. Okay, that's point. Whoa, that's probably enough. So that's a 1/2 ounce. Okay. Take another cup. Zero that out. This is the Hardener. I'm on a little food scale if you can't see this. And it's just a little shy. So we'll go right there. Okay, so we got part A and part B. I'm going to pour part B into A. It's got a little bit more run to it. Use a little brush here. I'm gonna get all this out. You want to be in a fairly warm room. I'm probably a little cooler than advised in my shop. We'll give it a try. I think that would only affect the consistency of it. Okay, so we have most of, let's get a second brush in a minute. We have most of the part B out of the second glass. And you can see here it gets a little milky when you mix the two together. Second brush and just scoop any last parts out, or tell you what, let's use this little stick I got. It doesn't do very well. It's a little nerve-wracking because I spent a lot of time building this. So hope this works. I'm gonna feed that in there. I'm not trying to be too careful because I'm gonna do when I put this in with the pigment, I will leave it proud, let it harden overnight, and then I'll be sanding the whole thing flush tomorrow. Probably a little too much in there. I don't want too much because I do want to leave room for the colored epoxy with the pigment. This should seal, and any air bubbles that are going to come up are going to be pulled up now in this little base coat. Instead of on the final coat, which I would not want. And I look how much I got left. I mean, I use barely any. So a little bit goes a very long way with the Maz epoxies. As a matter of fact, I try to pull some out. Okay, that looks good as a base coat. You can see here, it's just maybe a 1/16 of an inch thick. I'm gonna bring this into the house where it's a little bit warmer and let that set up. And then we'll mix up the colored pigment. After this is set, we'll mix up the colored pigment, we'll put it in, we'll leave it proud, and then we'll sand it down. Okay, so we've let this cure a couple, maybe 90 minutes. It's not totally set, but I think it's created a nice first coat. So now we're gonna mix up more of the epoxy and we're gonna add some pigment to it. So this is, it's called Pearlex. I've never done this. I'm gonna use the green to try to make this look like leaves, which is the intention. And I don't know how much to put in there, but you can see here a little green tint to it. So it's just real fine powder. So let's put the cover on that. Let's start with part A again. Maz tabletop. Turn on my scale. Is 0.2. I think I'm going to stop with that. 0.2 of that, and then we're going to put in, that's 0.2 ounces. We're going to put in part B. I should put it on the scale to see where I'm at. 0.2. All right. So last time I did this, probably wasn't thinking well enough, and I was really kind of whipping it together. I'm going to try not to stir it so hard, because again, you're trying to keep air out of this process. The more air you have in the epoxy, the more it's going to try to come to the surface and leave a void right at the surface of your workpiece. Okay, so now this will be interesting. How much pigment do we put in? I do not know. Okay, I'll just give it a whirl. Put the cover on so I don't knock that off. Let's start with a stick here. And I'm just, it's a little shiny for my liking, but you know what? We'll just go with it. Very iridescent, which might be cool in the backdrop of the wood. Let's do another helping. I wanted the darker color, but the store did not have that, and I didn't want to order it on Amazon, so we went with this color. Okay, so I'm just mixing in the powder. I'll switch to a brush now. And supposedly you can use this stuff with all kinds of materials. Okay, I'm going to start with my initials here and just paint this in and see how it goes. Trying to fill in, that's not a very deep gap. When I routed that, it was pretty, I think it was about 0.1 depth. So we'll leave it at that. See how that turns out. Not real concerned, that's the bottom. I'm just kind of curious to see how that'll work. All right, now we're gonna pour this, move this out of the way, into these voids again. See how it looks. So we're going to fill these up. Hopefully I made enough. Yeah, I'm sure I did. My hope is that if I let it set overnight, it's actually got a really kind of cool leafy look to it on that one. Let it set overnight. Tomorrow when I wake up, I can sand it. I am heading out tonight. When I get home, if it's shrunk or something and it's solid, I could put another coat on, but, ooh, dang it. Little piece of brush came off there. I'm gonna try to pull that out without making a mess. There we go. Okay. Actually, this could look pretty cool. It looks very, I'm gonna move the camera rather than picking this up when I'm done. It looks like foliage. It's got a lot of detail to it. Trying to stay proud here. I don't care if it runs over the top even, because I'm gonna sand it flush in the morning. I'd rather have it proud than have a void. I don't know what'll happen when it sands, if this detail will remain or if I'll lose the detail. And I'm actually kind of losing it here because I'm dribbling over it and it doesn't look as cool as it did before. So I think I'll leave it at that. So I'm going to move the camera now and bring it closer so you can see it. Hopefully the camera doesn't fall into it. But you can see there, you can see the level of detail. I think when I sand it, that'll get lost though. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is bring it back inside on a paper towel and keep it in the warmer side of the house. And see what we get tomorrow when we sand it. Okay, so I let this sit overnight. As you recall, I filled this up very proud, meaning it's, you know, a 1/16 to maybe even a little greater above the edge of the wood, the base of the wood. I'm now going to take a sander and lightly sand this off flush. Should be interesting to see what I get. So I'm going to use a random orbital sander. I'm going to keep it low, and I'm using 220. I want to start I don't want to get real aggressive with this and then make a mistake. So I'm going to go pretty slow here and see what we get.